Well, we're going to transition a little bit the next couple of videos. These are bearings for a Husqvarna 550. I've got a pair of those. I've got to build one of them. I believe I've got to split the cases. The other one I'm not sure. And it's kind of a daunting task for me after working on this darn thing, because it's so much easier building from scratch. All these parts are clean. I can work where it's warm. I don't have to worry about blowing dust and grease and grit off the saw. I can just start taking these nice, clean, crisp parts and putting them together. That's fun. Saw puzzle. This one here happens to be one that, well, I'm not going to get into it, but it's a saw that is a part of a test series I'm doing, and it's going to go through some evolutions. This is not going to be Bling Saw 2. This is going to be the test mule to bring out this HyWay top end as compared to the Farmertec, and as compared to this saw over here, which is the cross top end. You got both saw builds going. And I'll just, right now these saws will be built with absolutely no modifications, and we'll just see how they run. I've got a 54mm that has no modifications. I have a fairly unmodified 56mm. We'll just compare them all against. And alright, the way we're going to do this is I jacked that big old log up. It's a nasty thing, and what I'm going to do is take the saw that we just put the HyWay top end on, and I'm going to put a 7-tooth sprocket, let's be conservative, and I'm going to pull the bar and chain off of my Farmertec 56mm saw, run this for a little bit, get some time to break it in a little bit, and hope I don't hit any taps. And then take that same bar and chain and sprocket and put it back on the Farmertec 56, and then run it some more. And otherwise, basically bar, chain, sprocket back to back, and the combination of my impressions plus the actual times. The times are going to change. I might hit a tap. So, if they're close time-wise, you see how that log is? It'll have to be my impressions that tell you which one I think is stronger. This is the Farmertec, the first one I did. This has got to have almost 2 years on it. It's beginning to show its age. Notice the change in color of the plastic. Been a solid saw. I've used this quite a bit. And so, I guess you could start by saying it's not totally fair, because that one is broken in quite thoroughly, and this one hasn't even had a tank through it. So, there's all kinds of caveats you can say up front about it, but the bottom line is you can tell. I'll be able to tell. If that HyWay runs better, I'll know it. Even if the time might be slightly better on the Farmertec, or vice versa, you can tell. You might even be able to hear it on the film, but you can feel it. So like I said, it's going to be a combination of both the actual times, how I feel about the way the saw is running, that's going to tell me if I like one top end better than the other, or as far as I'm concerned, they're the same. I guess that's a possible outcome as well, huh? Yeah, it's chilly out. It's about 27 degrees. We have a few inches of snow on the ground. I had to push that log up, and I kind of braced it on the backside so it wouldn't come back down. So, but anyway, I'm going to see if I can get it done before the sun goes down. There's actually quite a bit of work to do here. The video might be 15 minutes, but I suspect I'll probably have 3 hours into it. Yep. And I have another one put together with a cross top end, and I'll do that at a different time. I just want to do head to head, one at a time, and then whichever one I like the best here, I'll go head to head with the cross. We'll see which one we like the best. How's that? Now I'm going to say up front, it don't matter. Even the most basic 54mm top end on these things will cut wood, and cut a lot of wood. So you get into these which one's better kind of discussions, and you know, I'm humoring people, but in my heart it's a waste of time because they're all functional. And you nitpick on stuff and you talk about bling and who's got the coolest saw and all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, when you start getting into this displacement saw, they're capable. I mean, it has to be a real pig not to be a useful machine. And the most basic, like I said, the most basic of 54s have been running quite well. They're a great saw. I don't have a problem with those. This is in my mind, a testament to the basic steel design. And what I mean by that is, with all these variations, even with these lower quality parts, and that's arguable, by the way, some of these parts are pretty good, it still is a functioning design. It's a functioning saw. And the only way that can be possible is if the basic design from the get-go was just a very well thought out, well designed saw. And that's what these are. Yeah, I'm going to start going back towards OEM. I mean, after you learn these things and learn to like them, you know, you kind of want to go back to the roots and figure out where they came from. So I'm kind of going to work my way back to an 064 or an 066 and maybe a 660 and just sort of complete the collection for me. I know most guys are going hard and fast towards the aftermarket kit saws. I'm kind of going the other way. I appreciate these and have had a lot of fun. But what it does is it makes you, like I said before, appreciate the design, and that kind of makes me want to go back and learn a little bit more about those. So get mad at me if you want. It's just where my heart is. So another little tidbit. This one here has just an OEM, no shim. It works. Some of these chain adjusters actually have a slightly different diameter on the end of the shaft, is what I found, both the aftermarket and the OEMs. So the ones that have the little larger diameter shaft, plus the cases that have a little bit smaller slot, they work straight up, no problem. If you go to the other end of the tolerance stack, they don't work at all. Otherwise, a smaller shaft diameter on the chain adjuster and the larger slot, and then you have to shim them just to make them work. And I think the other point I want to make on these saws, and I've done this now for a couple of years, is what will happen is you'll get a group of guys and they'll get a batch, a similar batch, and run into similar problems and assume that that's the same as they were and the same as they're going to be in the future. And unfortunately, the problem with all this stuff that I found is all you do is you learn how to debug that batch at that point in time from that particular set of parts that they actually, you know, have boxed up and sent. Next year it could be different, and last year it was different. So I think the value in going through those debugs is really twofold. One, it'll show a person getting into these things what you might run into and probably have a good chance of running into if those debug threads are up right now and you're buying right now. But the second thing is it shows that the basic saw, the basic set of parts can be made functional. And even when you run into these little things, there's usually, if you're clever, a way to get around them or go back to OEM on those parts. So the net is, yeah, you might run into those things and it's useful, but you might not, and you might run into other things. But either or, it doesn't matter, because you'll be able to make it work if you're clever and if you're willing to sub in the other parts. And that's really the message. Every one of my saws, every one of them is an individual. Every one of them had slightly different things to deal with. You can't kind of put them into that generic, if you do these things to a kit, you get a saw. You go there, you're just going to get disappointed, you know. But if you go into these things recognizing that those type of things are going to bite you, and if you're willing to go into it with that attitude and not have you know, don't be upset when you do it and consider that part of the challenge, you're going to have a lot of fun. So I had said this before, it really depends a lot on your attitude going into these things, on what you're going to get out of them. So anyway, I got a lot to do. That's another thing, and this is going to be a little hypocritical, but I hope that people don't go into these saws as a low-cost saw. and then take that same cheap is better attitude towards things like their PPEs. No, these are big, powerful saws. You've got to take these seriously, and you can't skimp on PPEs no matter what you think. I would say that getting good PPEs, that's chaps, you know, helmet, gloves, ear protection, and the like, is actually way, way more important than having a bling saw. I hope people understand that. It scares me sometimes. I see these guys jump into this, and they really haven't had a background in saws. So it's kind of new, it looks cool, and they go right for the bling saw and jump right past the experience, you know, working in the woods and running saws and understanding the risk, and either assuming they can figure it out on their own, which they might, but also there's risk, and being too proud to get advice from those who've been there, and worst of all, trying to do this all on the cheap and not buy the proper personal protective equipment. That's my rant. So anyway, back to the video. So I got a little time on this now. The high idle you're hearing is not the carburation. Handle and the throttle rod are hanging just a little bit. It's not letting it shut off. So that's a mechanical issue. It's not a tuning issue. I'll have to go back and figure out why it's hanging up and, you know, maybe file a little bit here and smooth a little bit there. But yeah, we cut through some taps. The chain doesn't look that bad. Strong saw, what can I tell you? So let's take that same bar, chain, and sprocket and put it on the other one, see how it does in the same wood, same day, same temperature, same everything. So. And just so that there's no disparity between those two saws, I have a stock unmodified muffler on this one. So this one here effectively has no modifications. I did clean up flashing on the ports and stuff like that, but that's about as close to a standard 56 millimeter Farmertec as you're going to get. And of course, that's pretty much bolt on too. So those saws are roughly equal in terms of how much effort was made to make them run better. And that's virtually nothing. The only thing that the Farmertec saw there has that the HyWay saw does not is 2 years of time. So I just wanted to show you on the inside so you didn't think that, oh, that's a modded saw. It's not. It's just a beast. So anyway, let me finish putting it together. There you go. What did I think? I'm not really sure what I'm going to see on the times. From a time perspective, they felt pretty close. From how it felt in my hands, the Hudzel saw was easier to keep on the power band. And I tended to want to push on a little more because I was more comfortable with the saw. Now that could simply be because I've run that thing a long time. So you have to have that factored in there. I don't know. In my mind, from the way you feel, they're both strong. I mean, that's a strong saw. A little debug has to happen on it, but no more than any of the other ones I've built. And I'll be able to whip this into a very good saw, I think. It's just this one seemed to be a little more finicky right now. But you know something? I remember when I first was running that one, it was finicky until it broke in, and then it got a lot less so. I really don't know why that would be, but it did. So I think really if there's a difference on the times, I think it'll be something that'll be equalized just simply through break-in time. But yeah, you could throw a blanket over them. I may be wrong because they both felt strong. And the other thing was I was cutting through old places where there was taps. I really don't know if that damaged my chain, but as I went into this, it felt like the chain was getting dull. Of course, that's frozen, hard, tapped maple. So you can see where all the taps were. All that stuff right there. I went through a nail or so pretty early on, but it didn't seem like it slowed it down that much, and that's one of the benefits you get with big displacement is you can work through that. So if the Farmertec slowed down, I'm not going to make any excuses, because when I looked at the chain, it didn't look like it did much damage. I think I had like one tooth. that looked like it was damaged. But I really can't tell you at this point which one has a better time. That one felt like it did. You know, it felt a little stronger to me. But if it is, it's simply because it's broken in. And the other thing is that the time's a little bit better on that. Part of it's because I'm just used to that particular saw. One thing I don't think we've spent enough time on is PPEs. And that's the little more expensive version of the steel helmet with the face mask. I like it. They've done a nice job. You know, it's about $50, $60, that range. Worth every penny. And, you know, there's enough of a brim on that cap where, God forbid, that saw come up and whack right in the face. At least there's something to block you a little bit. Of course, it's not going to stop it, but there's something there. One of the things I'm looking for, this is an aside, is I want to come up with a good helmet that has a chin strap for that very situation. Should a chainsaw come flying up out of there and whack you in the face or in the head, if there was a chin strap that could hold the helmet a little bit. Or like one of the times I had a situation where I got whacked by a branch and it knocked my helmet off, and then the second part of the branch hit me right in the head. Didn't hurt me. I was fine. But it just pointed out that, you know, just earmuffs alone is not enough to keep that helmet secure on your head should something happen like that. You know what I'm saying? And these chaps, these are the Husqvarna full wraps. And they have a strap right there that goes right above my calf. And it keeps those from trying to cinch down my leg. I really like these as well. These are very much worth the money. I spent about $100 on them. We should have a thread or something about Cool Bling PPEs, because that's a subject that really isn't focused on as much as it should be, and especially with the guys getting into these hobby saws. You got to put the money in the bling after you put the money into the PPEs. I just can't stress that enough. You know, I saw a couple of things happen at work where guys that had run chainsaws but really weren't thinking about it. They weren't into chainsaws, really. They were kind of like just running them. And one of the guys got hurt really bad, and kind of brought that subject right to my mind, right to the forefront. So anyway, talk to you later. Bye for now.